One way to get your child in the school you want is to take them out of the public systems. Starting in the fall, the state has set aside money to help some families make that happen. Tonight, we're on the record with a new program some say is unconstitutional.
It's time to go on the record with WRAL News.
Good evening. It is formally called the Opportunity Scholarship, and its entry site went live just 1 week ago. Applications are already flooding in for the new voucher program, with about 2,100 children on the list in just 3 days. WRAL's Capitol Bureau Chief Laura Leslie is here to show you who qualifies for the help.
Last year, state lawmakers voted to set aside $10 million to help pay for students to go to private or religious schools. For the upcoming school year, only low-income students are eligible. They must be attending a public school this semester, and they must be eligible for free or reduced lunch. For a family of 3, the maximum income is $36,612. A family of 4 can't make more than $44,568 a year. The scholarship will provide up to $4,200 a year per student for tuition and fees. Any amount over that would be up to the family to cover. Only about 2,400 vouchers will be issued for next school year. Elizabeth McDuffie with the State Education Authority says winners will be randomly chosen from the pool of applicants.
We will take everybody who applies by midnight on February 25th. We'll screen some basic eligibility criteria and get those who are not eligible out of the pool, and then we'll run a lottery on those that are remaining.
The application is online only, and parents will need an email address. That's how the state will notify the winners. Those notices are scheduled to start going out March 3rd.
Now, an upcoming court hearing could delay the program. The State School Board Association and the State Teachers Group have sued the state, saying the vouchers are unconstitutional. They're asking a judge to put the program on hold while the case works its way through the court. That hearing will be held Monday the 17th here in Wake County. Let's talk about this tonight with a major supporter of the program, Darrell Allison. Mr. Allison heads the group Parents for Educational Freedom in North Carolina. And from the North Carolina State Senate, Democrat Josh Stein, who has not been a supporter of vouchers for public education. And Capitol Bureau Chief Laura Leslie also here with us. When we began the introduction into Laura's piece, I said in the first 3 days there were some 2,100 people. You tell me that number now, a week into it, is about 3,000?
3,000, that's correct.
Does that surprise either one of you that the initial interest is as high as it is?
It doesn't surprise me, David and Laura. There's real pent-up demand for families, low-income families, to try to find a way that's going to, work for the children. When you look at our state's performance for low-income students in the traditional public schools, they're a little under 30%. So you line up 100,000 low-income kids in Wake County, 70,000 of them fail to be proficient in the traditional public schools. And so these parents are not satisfied with that, and they want to look for an option. They don't care if it's traditional or non-traditional. They just want a school that's going to work for their children.
Senator Stein?
I'm not surprised, but understand, put that in context. There are 1.5 million students in North Carolina public schools. Our state and the Constitution says every student has a right to a public education, and public dollars will be spent for a unified public school system. My problem with vouchers is that it drains money from our public schools to subsidize parents sending their children to unaccountable private schools. I don't have any problem whatsoever with a parent choosing to send their kid to a private school, choosing to homeschool their child. But our public dollars need to support public education.
Go ahead.
I think our public dollars need to support our public. When you talk about a uniform system, Senator, all due respect, is not uniform for low-income students in North Carolina. When you have 30% proficiency, and that's been the way, it's been that way for decades. We have the Leandro case, 20 years. Judge Howard Manning has been at this. This has been the case for decades. For 30% proficiency, that's not uniform, that's not equality. When upper middle class families and upper and wealthier families have the ability, because of where they zone, to have a quality education in the traditional public school system, And with low-income families, though they own their home, but it's $100,000 or less, the fact of the matter with the schools that they're zoned to is not the highest quality. That's not uniform. And so for us, we believe that the Opportunity Scholarship Program is an extension of the constitutional right that regardless of your income, regardless of your zip code, you too have an opportunity to access an education that's going to work for you.
I have no problem with choice, but it needs to be choice in a public school context. We have magnet schools in Wake County. You can have charter schools. All of those are accountable. They're in the public school system. They have licensed teachers who've undergone criminal background checks, a uniform curriculum that everybody knows what kids are learning. They actually have to take state standardized testing. These vouchers have been going on in certain communities for decades, and Milwaukee's the poster child. At every grade level, students in the traditional public schools outperform kids who get vouchers. And I am 100% with you, Daryl, 100% with you. I'm as committed as you are about raising achievement levels for all kids, particularly kids who come from disadvantaged backgrounds. But weakening the public school system, that isn't the way to get it done.
With all due respect, Senator, you're with me more than you think you are because you voted for a voucher program. 2013, you voted for a special needs grant. And I found it very interesting. I want to hear your justification. You know, the special needs grant costs actually more than the Opportunity Scholarship Program. It's a cost. The Opportunity Scholarship Program is a savings the first year. And when you look at the Opportunity Scholarship Program, we actually target specifically a population. The special needs voucher program that you voted for, there's no income cap. So if you're wealthy, upper middle class, or poor, you get a grant of $6,000. Opportunity Scholarship Program, we're limited to 2,500 low-income kids, and it's capped at $4,200. So you're more in line with me than you want to maybe admit, because you too know with your votes, you're saying that there are certain populations in our state of students that with all best intentions that the traditional public school is not quite meeting their needs, therefore we should look for other alternatives, other ways, whether it be traditional or non-traditional, to meet their needs.
It needs to be in the public school system.
A moment ago, you used the term unaccountable. That's part of the discussion we had when you were at this table about a year ago. And it seems to be sort of, it depends on who is saying the word, how that word is defined. Are you saying that some of the schools where these children would be going, who benefit from this voucher, are not accountable to state standards?
Absolutely. There's no requirement that they take any state standardized test. There's only, for high school students, they have to take one national test, which could be ACT that does math and English. But on every other subject, we don't know how they're doing. For the lower grades, there are not tests that they have to take. They don't have to take the end of grades, the end of course. And then they don't even have to report what their results are unless they have a threshold of a large number of students who are in that school system. I mean, in that particular private school. But they could teach anything. Their curriculum doesn't have to be based in science. It can be based on whatever they want it to be. They can also discriminate against any student they wish. If you're disabled and they don't want to have disabled students, they don't have to take you. If you're black and they don't want black students, they don't have to take you. If you're Jewish and they don't want you, they don't have to take you. And our public dollars should not fund discriminatory schools.
Yeah, I think that's a reach. Again, you support the idea of private education in North Carolina, Senator.
I do, but I don't think public dollars should fund discrimination.
Well, you did with your vote on special needs voucher program, 2013.
Well, if that's what that program did, that was a mistake.
Well, and so let's talk about accountability. These are the same schools and many of our affluent population, nearly 100,000 kids or students are educated privately. I'll say to you, David and Laura, that the vast majority of those families that's accessing that are your upper middle class and wealthy. My point is this.
They cost $4,200? Those schools cost $15,000, $20,000. The voucher is only $4,200.
The median tuition point for North Carolina private schools is $4,900. Even your higher price private schools have scholarship, and we are meeting with them, and they're actually having those families come to their school.
Daryl, you said earlier that that this program would represent a cost savings for the state. Can you explain how that is?
Yeah, so the first year of the program, this year, because we're taking kids, so to be eligible, that's the first point, you have to meet 100% free reduced lunch. The other caveat is that you have to be currently in the traditional public school system. And it costs nearly $9,000 to educate a child in our public school. So by them leaving the system, taking a $4,200 scholarship, that creates the savings, because again, all of the kids have to come from a traditional public school. They can't come from a private school or homeschool. So that's where the savings come in. And so it's a $10 million allocation, not a cost, because we're allocating $10 million, but it actually, Laura, if we maximize the scholarships, and it looks like we're doing that here, it actually generates a $2 million savings to the budget.
But that money goes to support more than just that student at that school, right? That's money that goes to support all kinds of things at the schools, and that's money the schools won't be getting, am I right?
Services. So the key to that is it's services. So if you have low-income kids, maybe counselors, things of that nature. So not all is lost, because what that school system has to do is just cut back on some of the services, because again, the services are targeted for those particular children.
Well, the fewer students you have in a school, the fewer programs and different kinds of opportunities you can present to those kids. But really, this fascination on cost savings in public schools is what's getting North Carolina in trouble in the first place. We are spending about $600 less per student today than we did in 2008. And so to say, yeah, we can save money, we're saving money to the long-term detriment of North Carolina public education. And what we need to do is invest in our public schools. Our teachers are 46th in the nation in pay. Our school, we're 48th in the nation of how much we invest as state and local governments in our public schools. Over the last decade, we are 51st, including the District of Columbia, in teacher pay and how much teachers have gotten impact on their salary. They've actually lost 16% in real dollars over the last decade. So the idea that we're saving money to educate kids where they don't have a curriculum that we know what it is, they don't have to take the same tests, the teachers aren't accredited, they don't have to undergo criminal background checks. I can save a lot of money. We can just stop educating our children.
I agree with you, Senator. Let me make sure we're clear. I know we're on opposite sides, but we're more together than you think. Public school system, we have to make sure that we have adequate pay of our public school system. The vast majority of our children will always choose traditional public schools, and we have to make sure that we're adequately paying and appreciating our teachers. I have family members that teach, a sister-in-law and an uncle that's in the public school system, and my daughter is educated in the public school system. So we have to make sure, take care of the public school system, take care of our teachers, but we also have to make sure that the parents are also at the table, that we give them a little bit more freedom and how best they want to educate their children.
A week from Monday, there's going to be a hearing in Wake County. This may start the ball rolling as far as the constitutionality or lack of constitutionality of this program. What does that do to the planning of the implementation? This could be put on hold. It could be taken off the board.
This is just one of, I could list you half dozen laws that the Republican General Assembly and Governor McCrory enacted that the courts are blocking because they didn't have a constitutional basis to do it. This is just one more example. There are two lawsuits. One is by a group of parents, and another is by a group of teachers and 40 different school systems around the state. And they have a hearing in mid-February, and it's very clear in the Constitution that public resources are to go for public good, and that we have to have monies go to a unified public school system. Having unaccountable private schools creates a two-tier educational system, one public for most kids and one private for some select kids. And that is not the way to go as a matter of policy, but it's also not what the Constitution allows. Well,
I appreciate your arguments there. I think they're weak. I believe that we do have a good, strong policy in place. Anyone could bring a lawsuit, and I do believe that they'll dismiss this case, and I think onward and forward in terms of implementation. But you brought out the folks that are bringing the lawsuit, and I find it very interesting. I think over 54 school districts have joined in. And look at the performance of low-income kids in those districts. When you add them all up, about 28% proficiency of low-income students in those school districts. So what are they saying? What are we saying? Are you saying stop parents at 3,000 slots that are already been applied for? Are you saying parents, we want to stop this program and we want to keep your kids in our schools because our schools are making your children proficient at a 30% clip? That to me is not only unconscionable, but that in and of itself, Senator, is unconstitutional. Why would we hold these families back? I will tell you this, if these school districts was generating 80% or more proficiency for students, I would be on the front line saying, let's do away with the Opportunity Scholarship Program, because at the end of the day, these schools are actually meeting the needs.
We have to do better by kids. There's not a single person who doesn't want to do better by our
And I
kids.
think the Opportunity Scholarship provoke her.
And the fact of the matter is that kids in North Carolina, relative to kids in other states, are doing better. Does that mean we are where we need to be as a state? Does it mean we are where we need to be as a nation? Absolutely not. But public money needs to go to public education.
I mean, I'm just wondering, 28%, okay, and I hear what you're saying about that. But you take those kids and that money out of those schools aren't going to get any better for the kids who don't get those slots,
I beg
right?
to differ. You look at these statistics, you know, the thing is, we act as if North Carolina just came up with this program in and of itself. No, we have a track record. You mentioned Milwaukee, 25 years that has been in existence. It has surpassed, it has overcome, it has remained under Democratic control, governor, legislature, as well as Republican. If it was so bad, Senator, they would have done away with that program a long time ago. Apples to apples comparison, these kids are doing well. Florida, the District
Right,
of
but I'm
Columbia.
not talking about the kids who get into schools. I'm talking about the kids who are left in the low-performing schools with less money coming in.
The key is it has to step away from funding. If you're asking me, Laura, that for this kid who's underperforming, for this kid who is behind in a school, they failed last year, and the odds are they're going to fail this year. If you're saying to me, keep that kid in there because it's all about the funding, I think that's wrong. What I'm saying to you is that when you look at Target, we're talking about just 2,500 students. We're not talking about the mass numbers. We're saying in any classroom, you can have a great teacher, you have a great school, but everybody knows that 30 students, 25 students, always 2 to 3 that are not quite getting it. This program is designed for those few kids. And I believe
So
we
the
all
private
get,
schools are going to accept the kids who are struggling? I mean, we
well,
can't,
I think
we
if
can't
you
control
hold
whether
to that point,
we can't control who the private schools admit. If it's a kid who has discipline issues or it's a kid who's disabled, the private school is under no obligation to accept that kid.
Senator,
whereas the public schools, they take you as they come, and that's the way it should be because our schools need to serve every child in North Carolina.